Hello, everybody, and welcome to another SIG Windows meetup. Thank you all for attending. So today is the 26th of March, and let's start with a huge congratulations to the team. We were able to go stable or GA with Kubernetes 1.14. That's probably, all right, Patrick. That's probably a huge milestone. Some folks have even called it one of the most influential or most important feature updates in Kubernetes. We're getting a lot of press and analyst feedback. We're getting a lot of touch points both on Twitter, LinkedIn. So huge congratulations to everybody. We couldn't have done it without Microsoft and Docker and Cloudbase and VMware and Pivotal. Did I miss anybody? Nope. That's it. And Google. So thank you all for contributing your time, your effort, getting buy-in from your employers to come in and contribute in this project. And we're not done. We have a lot more work ahead of us, moving forward. So I think now we need to kind of take stock into the amount of work that's left moving forward. We kind of talked about that last week, and we said that, start thinking about where you might want to contribute. And, we'll start the 1.15 journey probably starting today. The one thing I want to mention is some of you guys have been big contributors to the project, and you invested a lot of time and effort into this. You're going to get some giveaways in the mail and also an email tonight. So I believe everybody on this call has contributed quite a bit on the project, and you will get an email tonight with something from CNCF as well. All right, so let's look at our agenda really quickly. The first item on the agenda is kind of talking a little bit about what's coming up next, and then we'll dive even into a couple of items that Deep wanted to talk about. So some of our big features in 1.15 are kubeadm support, node end-to-end tests, and kind of bringing those under the under working for Windows first and figuring out doing the same things that we did for the conformance test. Then containerd support, GMSA, getting it to beta, and then the runtime class for Hyper-V isolation that kind of ties in nicely with containerd. So I guess the biggest thing that I wanted to see is to see if we can get someone, whether a lead from this team or someone that's going to be responsible, kind of tracking our progress across all these projects and start rallying up resources so we can create the design specs if we need to and start creating the necessary PRs. So let's start with kubeadm. From a VMware standpoint, we're going to have a couple of folks, Lubomir, which I don't see him on the call. It's a little bit late for him, so maybe he couldn't attend today. But Lubomir is going to work with Tim Sinclair to see about what's necessary to get kubeadm working on Windows. We also need someone to participate in that from our SIG. Is there anybody that's interested in kind of spearheading this project for kubeadm support?
I mean, that's definitely one I'm interested in contributing to, but I don't know that I can necessarily take the lead on that one because I need to be focusing on the containerd as a top priority there.
Okay. When you just really quickly on the containerd, so you added some notes here.
Yeah.
Are you also going to include the runtime class for Hyper-V isolation within that work, or do you want to keep them separate?
No, I want to include that in there.
Okay.
Probably add that as a sub bullet underneath there.
Yeah.
And my plan for this one is to actually start at the CRI API layer, because there's a number of changes that we need to make sure land in there that have been sort of circulating around runtime class. One of them is also accounting for like the pod overhead and some of the things that are needed for sizing VMs with Kata. Also basically would apply to Hyper-V isolation here. And so my plan is to focus at that layer, make sure we have the right stuff in the KEP, so that way we can enable the Hyper-V runtime correctly, and then of course that'll tie in with Cry Containerd.
Okay, makes sense. On the node end-to-end test, and I kind of jumped, is that something that Adelina and Claudio, is that something that you guys are going to spearhead, or?
Okay, now you can hear me.
No problem.
So we've started looking into it to see exactly what's happening there, how they should be run. Claudio mostly has been looking. So our focus this release is to pay more close attention to the flannel test and the OVS test. So I don't think we would be looking at the node E2E only or consistently, at least for the beginning. What we do is just take a look, see what's happening, what kind of work needs to be done. If it's something that exceeds our bandwidth, we'll probably let it for a couple of weeks to slide. Our focus is Containerd and testing with Containerd and the flannel stuff.
Okay. Excellent.
So I wouldn't say we can spearhead it, but we are looking into it, but not as a main thing.
Okay, got it. So I put it here as a not a big focus, and basically we'll keep it on the back burner. I'm assuming the group managed service accounts, Deep and Jeremy and John are basically going to kind of continue driving that.
Yep, that is the plan.
All right, so Patrick and I will talk offline about the kubeadm and figure out if nobody says that they want to kind of drive that, we'll find someone and see who's going to work with some of the VMware resources to drive this.
So I'm interested, but I don't have resources in the 1.5.15 timeline.
Okay.
That's the biggest issue.
Yeah, I think we were able to line up some of the cluster lifecycle folks for 1.15. So I think now that we have them, I want to kind of keep pressing and not move it forward another thing. But if it slides to another release, we can talk to Unique. Thank you. All right, that's it with that. Next item on the agenda, Claudio and I talked a little bit about this, but there's a sub-project of SIG architecture that's going to focus entirely on conformance. We need to be part of that for a couple of two reasons. And number one is they are going to make decisions about new conformance tests that are coming in. They're going to make decisions about what's conformance and what's not, conformance profile for Windows. All of those discussions are going to happen in that sub-project. And Claudio mentioned that he's going to step up and start attending that group, participating, and then throwing back feedback to our team. Claudio, is there anything else you want to add to that?
I think tomorrow is the first meeting that I'll have to attend. So that's it.
Could you guys hear Claudio very clearly? I kind of missed a few things.
Yeah, can you hear me better now?
Yeah, there's a little bit of echo and a little bit of feedback.
Yeah, sorry, no idea why. But from what I saw, the meetings are tomorrow, so I'm gonna start attending that. Starting with that.
Excellent, thank you so much.
And what's the title of the meeting? Is it on the Kubernetes community calendar, or do I need a separate invite?
They might have created a separate invite for that, Patrick. Let me see if I see it on the calendar.
I mean, tomorrow I see. Oh wait, nope, that's working group IoT Edge.
Tomorrow's.
In the README I've pasted, it's also the Zoom link there.
Yeah, I don't see it here either on the calendar, Patrick. So they have SIG Node, Cluster API, KubeSpray, kubeadm, SIG CLI, Contribex. Well, Yeah, it's not here. Yeah, it's probably an off.
You have to join the mailing list, and then they send you an invite.
Yeah, I'm on the mailing list, but I'll okay. Anyway, I've got the README bookmarked, so I'll make sure I get that worked out.
Okay, are you gonna start attending it as well?
Yeah.
All right. Excellent. Cool. All right. Let's move on. Deep and John and Jeremy, you want to give us a GMSA update? I know you have a PR on APIs out. I have not reviewed it, but I saw there's a lot of feedback going back and forth.
Sure. I mean, there's a PR out for the API changes for beta, and there are going to be PRs out today for updates to the webhook. And yeah, that's pretty much it. But yeah, if you want to review it, I pinged Jordan Legit for review yesterday too. So hopefully that should move forward.
Yeah, and I think he added it to the API review board as well. So
are we following the new API review process that SIG architecture set forth with that one?
pretty much. So the changes were called out in the KEP as is required in the new thing. And so Jordan yesterday also marked it so that it shows up in their board, which assigns them a reviewer for the API changes. So
yeah, I'm assuming since Jordan kind of reviewed our alpha one, he's going to continue being the guy associated with us, so that works out pretty well.
Yeah.
Cool, excellent. We look forward to seeing that.
Yeah, I did want to sort of bring up one point. So one of the open items we had around that was sort of like, you have the security context field in the pod spec. And one of the notes that Jordan had during the KEP review was, should we start looking at OS specific areas or structs, right? So basically you have things for Linux like SC Linux context, and then for Windows, we are starting off with GMSA and potentially other things. So I don't think there have been any movement on that front, but I was just curious if anyone else has any thoughts on it.
Yeah, so I had requested that for the run as user PR that James had put together for 14, and it wasn't accepted because it was after the API review deadline.
Okay.
And so the run as user would be another, well, I guess, sorry, it's run as user name instead of run as user is what we had called it. But if we did add a Windows security context field, then I think it would make sense to have run as user and, run as service account or credential spec or whatever the field's going to be called there.
Sounds good. So we'll follow up on that as well then, Jean with Jordan, I guess, as reviews.
And I'll ping you on Slack to make sure that we get the run as user on the review board.
Yeah, so Patrick, on the last meeting, if you look at the notes from 319, I pasted a link to the API review process. So it's the last link there. Is new, whatever you're pointing now. So that's basically the review that SIG architecture asked everybody to start following now. So we can do that for that. So Deep, since you guys are on the hook now, you want to talk about the storage roadmap as well?
Sure. So if you scroll down, I have it pointed to a document. If possible, you can maybe open it up. But basically, what happened is last meeting, Jing Zhu, I believe, from Google was there, and after the meeting, we had a discussion between Nick from Microsoft, Yuju, and Jing, and myself around like what might be a potential set of options for supporting persistent storage workloads in Windows. And the feedback there was, there are obviously lots of different options because there are various ways you can write plugins and hook into the ecosystem. So based on that, I wrote up a doc. The feedback was to, enumerate all the options and pros and cons of each of them. So I captured all of them in the doc. And I came up with a list of things that we should potentially do for 115 to make like the Windows support more sort of first-class citizens and in parity with what's there in Linux today. So there are three main things that I'm proposing there. One is, although like the overall community thing is like no more entry storage plugins, I'm proposing that, hey, now that Windows has GH, should we consider a SMB entry plugin just to be in parity with the NFS plugin, and it doesn't kind of bring in too much of a baggage in terms of vendor code because it's like fairly platform independent. as in like independent of any cloud provider resources, provider APIs. Then I propose a set of enhancements to the existing in-tree iSCSI plugin to make sure that it just doesn't work with iSCSI ADM that's there for Linux, but also uses the PowerShell commandlets that's there for Windows. And to support CSI, I present an option around using a privileged proxy process that will do certain privileged operations for us. There's some security issues around it, but the idea is with the mechanism that I propose in the doc, like one can potentially have a privileged daemon that runs just like kubelet.exe or kubeproxy, and that CSI node plugins can talk to in order to do the privileged operations on their behalf. So that's a model we have already tried with the CNI plugin and interacting with HNS API calls. Dinesh probably has some experience with that already. So basically I was proposing something very similar for CSI as well, and sort of providing an API layer that performs most of the operations from the storage side that I've seen that are necessary for Windows. So this might lead out to a few KEPs eventually, but I just want to get an overall overview from the community around. If you have any feedback, comments, please post it there. We also plan to bring it up in the SIG storage meetup on Thursday and have a more in-depth discussion around some of the things there.
Yeah, absolutely. I guess everybody should read this and provide feedback, and let's put it on the agenda for next week again, so we can discuss what the feedback looks like, including the SIG storage meeting.
Perfect. Sounds good. That's all.
And I think the last item on the agenda is Patrick, from you, the discussion around some of the 1.14 to 1.15 PRs and specific tests.
Yeah, I don't have anything real specific on that other than, if you've got a PR that wasn't merged, there's a good chance you may need a rebase, but we want to try to get the rest of those test PRs merged pretty much as soon as we can. Let me pull up the board here. Oops. I'm trying to find it real quick. Forgot how to use bookmarks here. So it looks like there are still 12 PRs that are listed as in review that were carried over from 14. Mm-hmm. And so there was some stuff around the Windows DNS config. Looks like there may have been. It looks like Ben still has a PR open around port forwarding, and I think there may have also been a PR for GMSA. But basically, if you've got something on that list, just make sure it doesn't need a rebase, and then we can go ahead and start pinging people to get merges on those done. So the other thing that I wanted to mention real quick, are you still there, Adelina? Oh yeah, okay, you're on the call. So Adelina was also going to start taking a look at making it easier to get PRs tested using a prow command, because right now we're not doing per PR testing. So she's going to start doing some investigations in that direction, which will make it easier for us to get these tested before they actually go in. And so hopefully we'll have some more updates on that soon.
That'd be amazing.
Did you have any questions or anything you want to add on that, Adelina? Sorry, you're still muted.
It will be the staging job. It is a little bit flaky, but good enough for a PR job. I mean, we can distinguish between an actual flake job and a test failure. We'll have to trigger it manually because we cannot at this point, but we don't have the resources to run it on every possible PR. So it will probably be a command like test full Windows something that we have to trigger manually. I am trying to see if we can, on the other hand, automatically trigger the job for any PR with a specific label or with changes in specific files. For our case, label will be what we need. So basically, that's what I'm trying to do. I'm investigating, and it should be, frankly, easy to set up. It's just figuring the right job definition, as I said, for this. It will take, so the staging job, if you look at them, it takes somewhere around an hour and a half, 1 hour and 40 minutes to run, which is reasonable to wait for a test pass. What is important to mention that those tests are in parallel and that we cannot, I mean, we will not be able to run them, say, if our tests for some reason need to be run sequentially. So we will not cover that case. But other than that, it should be fine for the vast majority of our use cases.
Okay. All right. So, thanks.
All right. So I guess the last thing is, look at our backlog. We kind of split into two: the backlog for 115 and the generic backlog. If you have spare cycles and you can tackle one item in there or two, and make sure there's some low-hanging fruit, and there's some of them are a little bit more involved. But as you have time, let's look at them. We're also gonna start getting a lot more bugs from customers as they're trying Windows. I know that Dinesh and David have talked about some better troubleshooting stuff on networking, because we had a lot of folks that had network issues, even trying our beta or even previous releases. So we need to figure out ways to scale. So Dinesh, I'm going to look at you and David to kind of write some of those troubleshooting steps on the networking, so that that happens. But in general, you have cycles. Help us fix bugs. Our project board has all the details. If you see something that we haven't documented right, let me and Patrick and Craig know, and we'll fix it. Or go submit a PR account docs yourself, and we can review it. So we have pretty substantial documentation this release, and big thanks to everybody that contributed to write that. So let's keep it that way, and let's keep updating that so our customers don't have to ping us for every little thing. Oh, and Craig, you want to talk a little bit about the Discuss server? I forgot to add that on the agenda. Craig?
So I think Craig had to leave for another meeting.
Okay, so I'll put it on the agenda for next week. So essentially, we have a discussion server that people can come in and ask questions if they don't want to use Slack. So that's a Kubernetes community engagement type thing. So we'll discuss that next week. Cool.
Wait, I think Craig just unmuted. Is that the one you forwarded me yesterday, Craig? Oh, maybe not.
All right. I'll add the link to the notes. I have it. So we'll discuss it next week. All right. Well, thank you all. Again, congratulations. Huge milestone. We look forward to doing more things together as a community. And everybody's really proud of the work that we've done. So get a beer or a drink or something tonight.
Thank you.
All right. Have a good day, everybody.
All right. Bye.
Bye.